Well, you could say the White House is awash in scandals, including the IRS targeting of conservative groups, the Justice Department spying on journalists, and, of course, the ongoing uproar over the Benghazi terror attacks. Will all of this dominate President Obama's second term and threaten to consume his presidency? Let's bring in our political insiders. John LeBoutillier is former Republican congressman for New York. Doug Schoen is a Fox News contributor and a former pollster for Bill Clinton. Pat Caddell joins us on a remote camera, Fox News contributor and a former pollster for President Jimmy Carter. Gentlemen, good to have you back here.
Good to be here.
All right. What struck me is that President Obama's approval ratings have really tanked. He is now underwater. Let's put it up. Quinnipiac poll. His disapproval now exceeds his approval, and in 1 month he has lost 7 points. That's a 7-point swing.
Greg, this is serious. The president has taken whatever comfort you can take from the fact that heretofore he has not suffered. His approval's been somewhere between 47, 48, and 50%. And what the White House has tried to argue is the scandals involve other people, not the president, other agencies, not him. Well, given, as you suggested correctly, the mushrooming of the scandals, the president is now very, very worried. These numbers reflect that.
Pat, let me go to you, because in all three of these scandals I named, the vast majority of people who were likely intimately involved behind the scenes, they haven't even been interviewed yet. So is this thing going to really spread like a rash?
Oh, yes, it's going to spread a lot, because you're right. None of the people in the White House involved have been questioned. Look, the real challenge for the opposition, the Republicans, will be whether they can mount a strategic narrative so that people understand. Washington's wrong when it says people, all the wise guys saying people don't care. They do care. They are following it, but they need it explained to them, and that's what's missing.
Well, John, what about Republicans? How are they faring in all of this?
Well, following on what Pat just said, Greg, we have new polls out now showing for the first time since Election Day, Republicans are leading on every issue over the Democrats. Now, that's the scandals driving down the Democrats, not just driving Obama down, driving Republicans up a bit. I agree with Pat that now is the time for the Republicans to frame these three scandals into a narrative. And I think I know what it is. It's that the Obama administration uses government power to go after people who disagree with it, whether they're reporters, conservatives, whatever. They will do anything to discredit their enemies, and that is an ugly reality.
The IRS scandal seems to anger, Doug, Americans more than anything else. It may resonate with them because they already fear the IRS. But look at this poll. It's a new Fox News poll. More than 2/3 feel that government is out of control and threatening basic civil liberties. Is this the scandal that has the most legs? Could this morph into something that really consumes the Obama administration?
Well, yes, is the direct answer to, I think, an important question. A couple of reasons. First, as you suggest, most people say, well, if they did it to conservative groups, the Tea Party, they could do it to us, and how extensive is it? That's point one. But point two is if people think that their ordinary day-to-day life could be impacted by these scandals in the way that rampant IRS corruption could, bottom line, it could hurt and continue to hurt the president.
Pat, it's not just the Tea Party groups that were targeted. Now we're hearing from a whole host of other conservative groups, even religious groups, who dared to challenge the president and his policies. Is this going to embolden just more people to come forward?
Sure it will, and they're already coming forward. It is what John suggested, big government as a threat and big government as it works. And I'll tell you this, it is important that again, these scandals be tied to real people's lives. The IRS goes directly to the issue of Obamacare and how they're going to, and why are they enforcing it, and should they be enforcing it? The question about overregulation goes right to jobs and how they're targeting job creators. So that's what really is important, and it's going to mushroom, as we said earlier.
Congress is investigating, but it appears as though, some of the folks at the IRS have utter contempt for Congress. Here's Douglas Shulman, he's now the former IRS commissioner. Take a listen.
There might be many reasons you would be at the White House. what would be some of the reasons you might be at the White House?
The Easter egg roll with my kids.
That is just an insulting and indifferent response, right?
Yeah, that guy has been to the White House, according to the White House official visitors log. I think it's now up to 158 visits to the White House. The head of the IRS under Bush, 8 years, I think it was 1 visit. Now, Congress needs to find out, why are you going all the time to the White House? What is being discussed? And going along with that is something that Pat and Doug and I have been fixated on, which is the head of the IRS Workers Union.
Right.
Had a meeting with the president on March 31st, 2010, according to the White House visitors log. The next day, they began the campaign in the IRS against the Tea Party groups. Now, what went on when the president met with this woman? We need to know.
Pat, you wanted to weigh in on that?
Yeah. I really want to weigh in on Shulman, because you know what? It's all right for my grandchildren to believe in the Tooth Fairy, but not for adults. He met 157, 158 times. He met more than 3.5 times more than Hillary Clinton, 3.25 times more than his boss, Timothy Geithner, and more than 2.5 times the John Mitchell of this administration, Eric Holder. What was he doing? Who did he see? We need to know. The chief of staff, Mr. Axelrod, Mr. Pluff, who was he meeting with? You have to be a fool to believe that a head of an agency that's separate is meeting in the White House and not doing politics.
You know, Doug, a Rasmussen poll, let's put this up on the screen. Most Americans think it's not just the IRS that's coming after them. They think other government agencies are targeting conservative groups. Look at that.
Well, Greg, given what we've learned in the last day or so about how expansive and extensive the IRS investigations or targeting has been, bottom line, the American people aren't wrong. And there's more to come out. Bottom line, people are fearful of government. Yeah. What they want to know is, what can you do to change things?
Charlie, skip forward to the Rasmussen poll, wrong track, right track, because this may speak volumes about how Americans are really feeling about everything going on here. The direction of the U.S., wrong track, 30%. John, wrong direction, 61%, right track, only 30%.
Well, we have a sluggish, if you want to call it economic recovery at best. And the mood is still sour and tentative, which feeds into their cynicism about these scandals. Believe me, when the economy's doing great, like Bill Clinton had, when the Monica Lewinsky thing happened, he survived it in part because the economy was so good.
The IRS scandal involving the targeting of conservative groups has really morphed. And take a look at this latest Quinnipiac poll. A huge amount of Americans, 76%, say yes, appoint a special prosecutor to investigate the IRS. Of course, you know that Eric Holder has already launched a criminal investigation, but he's so close to the president, he is arguably biased. So, back with our political insiders, Jonathan Boutillier, Doug Schoen, Pat Goodell. So, Doug, how do they feel about this on Capitol Hill?
Well, on Capitol Hill, they, on balance, smell blood. They see an attorney general who's wounded, administration's wounded. They don't want to give up their power, Greg. The Republicans don't want a special prosecutor. The Democrats, from the other perspective, saw what happened with Whitewater with Bill Clinton. They don't want one either. Bottom line, you have this disconnect you alluded to between the American people wanting something and people on Capitol Hill, for their own reasons, rejecting it.
Pat, a congressional committee does not have prosecutorial powers. They don't have the power to grant immunity to potential witnesses. They don't have the power to find and dig up all the criminal evidence and threat of an indictment. So isn't a congressional committee, by comparison, impotent?
Not necessarily, because it does put people under oath. It can subpoena the White House officials. And you know, in Watergate, we had the Watergate urban hearings going on, the Select Committee on Watergate, at the same time that the special prosecutor appointed by Judge Sirica was in operation. So all of that was happening simultaneously. You can work this out. You need to do both. The public needs to know what's happening and who is doing it.
Yeah. The other dirty little secret is, congresspeople don't want to give up their TV time.
Right.
Having these hearings, they get on there. I learned a long time ago, they call them hearings because we have to hear the Congress people expound all day.
Congressmen are supposed to pose questions, but they give these long speeches instead. There's never a question mark.
The other bad thing about a special prosecutor is politically, if one were to be appointed, and there is no law today to govern that, but if they had a special prosecutor, all that info, the subpoenaed witnesses, everything, goes into a black hole. It would run past the 2014 midterm election, and they don't want that.
Because it takes a long time. All right, let's talk about Eric Holder. Can he hold on? Let's put up a couple of Rasmussen polls. Should Eric Holder resign? 42% say you should, 24% disagree, 34% say, huh? Who? What? Eric Holder's job performance, disapproval far exceeds the approval ratings. Can he hold on?
Well, he can hold on in the short term. Greg, he is getting to be a millstone around the neck of the White House. Now, President doesn't want to fire Holder. He's close to him personally. Holder has carried his water. At the same time, it wouldn't be a bad result if Holder himself decided that it was best to move back to the private sector. I think the White House is now mulling over whether it's worth sending those signals out that Holder might want to consider that.
Pat, let me throw you a curveball on Benghazi and whether it's impacting Hillary Clinton. Take a look at this Quinnipiac poll because, a lot of folks are blaming her for being, not there to accept that late-night phone call she promised she would if elected president. 15-point swing here in her favorability ratings. They've really taken a nosedive. What do you make of that?
Well, what I make of it is that she is being heard. And remember, we've only skimmed the surface of Benghazi. The major questions, and this is why the select committees are so important, whether or not you have a special prosecutor in the IRS case. We don't know, for instance, we've not heard from any of the evacuees. We still do not know what the president did that night, and we also do not know, most importantly, where did these fantasy video talking points, they're not in the talking points, who provided them that the president and Hillary Clinton used for 2 weeks. This could, the damage is being done on all of these.
Gotta call it at that, guys. Pat Goodell, Doug Schoen, John LeBoutelier, Political Insiders. Gentlemen, thanks so much. You can catch them every Monday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern, live.foxnews.com. They'll be back here, of course, next Sunday. You can also follow them on Twitter at FN Insiders.